I love you, you love me. Let's do things in the Bible because it's the only way to live if you don't want to burn in hell. That's what I say. Otherwise, you'll burn in hell. Oh, hi everyone. I didn't notice you there while I was reading my Bible. Today, my name is Zach. This is the Shaking Crest. And welcome out of the void. It's very nice to see you all. Hooray! Sorry, I was childish before, so I thought I'd play it out after a long day of being a fucking chimney sweet boy.
I'm a cockney. Oh, I can't get off this way. Fuck.
Hi everyone, I'm Zach. This is the fucking Shaking Fist. Why don't you come out of the void and sit down and let's all have some fun laughing at fucking inspiring philosophy, not understanding how time works, and various things and that such, because, you know, hey, that's what we're all here for. It's Wednesday. You know what that means? It's time for another fucking video, and I started last week doing inspiring philosophy talking about the flood, so I could bring out a music video in the next week or two. And then, so the first part's there, so go watch that if you need to know that you want some context of what's going on, because context is key. Anyway, and much to say, I had a very nice stream with Mr. B.S. Lewis last week. Do you know, if there's other people that might want to come on to talk, I might start having guests on once a month or something like that. See how it goes, because so far, you know, I've had B.S. Lewis on, I've had Mr. Michael Bagley, and I've had Joe from the Kentucky Atheist. So if there's anyone else that would, I should be on. Ooh, excuse me. I think it's this Sunday after my stream. I should be going on Embers for a little bit before Bad Science Sunday, so that should be fun. So be sure to do that as well after my stream this Sunday, because of course I'm streaming this Sunday because I've started streaming all the Sundays. Isn't everybody happy Isn't everybody happy and excited? So, like, subscribe. If you feel the need to comment, why not do that? It's cool. I very rarely, I got better at actually commenting back. And now I just have to get better at doing it closer to when people do it. So it's cool. So anyway, we'll just get into the fucking thing, because I ramble too much. I ramble. I'm a rambling boy. I'm a big rambling boy. I'm a chimney sweet mate. Fucking chimney. I'm a cockney.
Could there have been global flooding? In other words, as the Persian Gulf flooded, could there have been massive floods along coastal regions in a global sense? The idea is not inconceivable.
Inconceivable! You keep using the word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Numerous oral traditions do in fact support this notion. Several cultures from around the world report they experienced a sudden and catastrophic flood in the distant past. One study on Aboriginal oral traditions argues that corroborating evidence indicates Australia experienced catastrophic flooding that affected the coastal regions of the continent.
So, even in your big worldwide flood, you're talking about anecdotal evidence taken from asking Aboriginal people that don't keep the best records, and go, see? They said Australia flooded, at some time, and only around the coast, because of rising sea waters! But that's totally the worldwide flood!
Correlating with the same time as this prehistoric Mesopotamian flood.
See, so, as long as it correlates with the same time as the other thing, considering the other one says about 6,000 years ago, the other one says, 8 to 11,000 years ago, you can see how those are the same times. You can see how, when you read geology, like I said before, 3,000 years doesn't seem like that big a time span when you're talking about rocks that can take millions of years to form. So 3,000 years is like the blink of an eye and in a fucking geological time scale. But when we're talking about human lives, that's a long fucking time, right? Noah lived to it was 900, something like that? 7, 8, 900, something like that, right? So Noah didn't even live for a third of the time span that all that stuff in Saudi Arabia could have occurred in, because it had happened 3 times. So the idea that you could just go ask some Aboriginals and they say, well, actually it happened around this time, and then you take Well, this guy said that there was that the lakes around Saudi Arabia broke through the fucking wall dams and created wadis, flooding into fucking northeast and eastwards into the Red Sea/Dead Sea area. And you can see that if I line up these two very different events that happened for very different reasons, well then, because Australia was definitely affected by the change in monsoons from India going into Saudi Arabia, you see. God. And this is why you need to pick and choose, and this is why you need to cherry pick everything, because you can make everything seem super easy to figure out if you only show bits of it, you see?
Super easy, barely an inconvenience.
Because, that study says that they talked about it, so it definitely happened, because, the Christians and oral tradition's really important, because otherwise none of the stories make sense and have any basis in truth, unless you think that, an oral history is suddenly, the most accurate thing there can be. Through thousands of years that people have been telling these stories to each other, and they never change! Never! Don't look at any old nursery rhymes and how different than they are today. Yeah, because things don't change over time, ever. Never, ever, never, ever, 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 never, ever, never, ever, never, ever, never, ever, ever.
Big changes were happening to Earth's climate.
Changes.
This is known as the Younger Dryas period. About 12,800 years ago, the last ice age came to a sudden and abrupt end.
It's almost like even on that chart that he's showing that's like a 3,000 to 4,000 year period.
And recent studies have suggested evidence of a comet impact, which could have been the likely cause.
So it could have been a likely cause, you see. There's a comet impact that caused, the world to heat up and the ice age to start melting. It could have been a cause, you see. And if that could have been a cause, it means it wasn't God creating a worldwide flood. It means that a giant fucking rock from space came and collided with the Earth, and then, through the plumes of smoke that it threw in the air, actually created some sort of runaway greenhouse effect that eventually cleared as the dust settled and the world corrected its temperature. So instead of overwarming, it leveled out, and then the ice didn't come back in the great amount that it was. When it covered most of North America, like Canada and fucking America and Europe and such, in fucking glacial ice. Maybe that all the things you're pointing to actually say that the ending of the Ice Age is what created a flood. But hey, no, what he's trying to do is look at all the ways it could be this, and that he's going to swerve you at the end, isn't he? He's going to come in and he's going to swerve you at the end, and you're going to go, what? No, I didn't see that coming. It really was God. All the evidence pointed away from it. But you've got a little nugget here.
We must be right on top of it.
What is it, Sebastian?
The sudden melting of ice would have caused sea levels to rise rapidly, and this correlates with 75% of the megafauna disappearing.
Megafauna disappearing doesn't have anything to do with the advent of human hunting practices. It was totally just the melting of the ice that destroyed all the megafauna. We didn't kill off the saber-toothed tigers. We didn't kill off the woolly mammoths, shoving him off fucking all this shit. We didn't kill any of these fucking things. He was just talking about Australia that was covered in megafauna until humans went over before this period and killed them all. People were killing all the megafauna before this period. 75% of megafauna didn't just suddenly disappear because the melting of the fucking ice caps. It's because we developed stronger spears and we drove them off cliffs and ate their bones. Meat.
As well as the end of the Clovis culture in North America.
Motherfucker, you were trying to draw conclusions to things that happened fucking 6,000 or 7,000 years ago, a minute ago. The Clovis culture declined in America 11 to 12,000 years ago. But that's the thing, right? You're not supposed to, stop this fucking video every 5 seconds and look up every point that he puts across, right? Because he's just drawing a bunch of things together, right, that have no actual inclination of being worked together in the slightest. They have no causal link whatsoever. The Clovis people were in New fucking Mexico, which wasn't flooded by Arctics the Arctic ice fucking, like melting. They didn't die from that. But if you make it look like that by saying, well, this type of melting happened at this time and it coincides with this people going away, it's almost like a flood killed them, you see? As long as you don't look at, like, where they were. But, hey, they only killed all the megafauna, which I guess was probably actually more of his point, not trying to draw a conclusion of that. But you see, my overall point still stands, right? This fucker is just trying to draw as much stuff together to go, look, it all fits together, right? Forget that some of these events are thousands of years apart from each other, right? They all happened at the same time because in a geological sense, a few thousand years is nothing, you see? And if it's nothing in a geological sense, that means it's nothing in a realistic sense. And forget that I was talking about in a geological sense whatsoever. They all happened at the same time, and they all happened because God made a flood happen.
But some researchers have suggested the beginning of the Younger Dryas period was not a sudden and catastrophic change, as previously thought.
Again, he hasn't read the fucking study. Because what the study says, and it says that the thing is the one... Motherfucker, the thing talks about the fucking Younger Dryas period 1b, if you read the fucking study you're citing, cunt, actually says that during various points of the cooling, the warming of the world, there's the 1a period, which is about 14,000 years ago. The 1b period that's different. See, what happened is that things actually started to cool off, and it even shows you with this little fucking graph here, right? And then it suddenly drops down, but the bit you're talking about and what that study's talking about is around Barbados in one specific part of the fucking ocean where instead of actually warming up like everything else, it cooled down and made more ice before it melted. And it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that fresh water freezes quicker than fucking salt water. Thus, when you melt something like, say, the ice caps in Antarctica or in the Arctic, right, you put much more fresh water in, so when it freezes the next time, because of the concentration of fresh water over salt water, it freezes quicker, thus appearing to make more ice. It's weird what happens when you actually show the studies you show, instead of going, look, I showed the first page of it, I haven't read it at all, and I have taken away from it that it says that actually maybe it didn't happen as quickly as people thought, but it still happened over a 400-year period. Which isn't 40 days, but hey, who cares, right? Who cares? Because, you see, we're just going one by one over all the reasons it can't be, and the Bible is. Or is this all, or are we still drawing to that this is all proving it, even though it happened over very disparate times? But, you're not supposed to care about that, right?
However, at the end of this period, the Earth's temperature rapidly increased. One study said the Younger Dryas period ended extremely fast, causing a second rapid increase in sea level. 10 million square miles of land were lost, and the global climate transitioned to a warming period.
Catastrophic flooding around coastal areas where the sea had risen, maybe lakes, if the runoff waters are going to go into a lake instead. And, it didn't flood everywhere, and it didn't kill everyone. You could tell by the way that everything's still here!
What caused this is still disputed, but this would have caused catastrophic global flooding events.
You see how that one leads into that one, which leads into the other one, which leads into another one, and they all lead into each other, even though they're, like, desperately different over a couple thousand years. Hey, it doesn't matter, right? You see how that one caused that one, it caused that one. It's a knock-on effect, right? Hooray! Hosanna! Hosanna!
And due to the climate warming, it likely would have caused massive rainstorms around the world. Correlating with the research with regards to the deluge in the Gulf Oasis. So it is likely there were several global flooding events, just never a point where every piece of land was completely underwater.
Don't you just love it when fervent Christians decide that, hey, what you gotta do is... don't you just love it when fervent Christians decide that actually, when the evidence doesn't really point their way, and it points to possibly a comet crashing down and maybe being, involved with the end of the Clovis people and not the end of all the superfauna because it started 50,000 years ago. But if you just take all the time frames and you ignore them a little bit and make them a little bit blurry, look, they're all kind of the same, right? And it's just all about these people just passing it along word of mouth anyway. So it doesn't matter that they eventually attribute it to God saying that he killed everyone because they were fucking angels. Really, it was just some localized flooding that happened at different time periods, and it's God for you. That's just God for you. He works in mysterious ways. Hey.
Also correlating with the flood account is the fact that studies into genetics note that roughly about the same time, a population bottleneck occurred within our species.
Roughly around the same time, and human populations changing and genetic variation are driven not only by genetic processes, but also can arise from cultural or social changes. An abrupt population bottleneck specific to human males has been inferred across several Old World, Africa, Europe, and Asia populations for 5,000 to 7,000 BCE. And it's weird how 5 to 7,000 is like 5 to 6,000 years after, all these flood things happen. So, did you see the mistake I just made? Because I just made it, and I found it on the edit, and now I'm rectifying that mistake, because I'm willing to bet he made the same fucking mistake. Look, several populations from 5,000 to 7,000 BP. It doesn't say BC, does it, or BCE? No, it says BP, before present. So you've got to minus the last 2,000 years. So that's actually 3,000 to 5,000 years, which is further away than like the 7,000 to 12,000 time. It's a little bit further away than the 11 to fucking 7,000 year time period you're trying to point out, right? Because, it's between 5,000 and 7,000 BCE, right? Because you're not supposed to look closely enough, because he's not trying to convince people like me who might actually read the study and go, that's an interesting thing to read, or anything like that. He's literally just preaching to people that want to feel smarter about their God arguing, so they can pull out nuggets that they haven't thought of before, because this dickhead pulled them out of his ass, and he expects that none of us are ever going to really pick up on stuff like that. You know what I mean? Cool beans, yo. Cool beans. The ice flooded, the ice melted, right? A comet came in, or a volcano went off, or just, general changes in, the makeup of the world, like humans burning stuff and fires and stuff or whatever. And you can start to melt things, and when things start to melt, it becomes, a runaway effect, because, it's just dominoes, right? So that happens. So then, all the ice starts melting except for, in around Bermuda and bits of the Atlantic and the younger dry ass IB period, right? So then that causes the ITCZ, the fucking, where all the monsoons come through in the little area around the thing that creates all the hurricanes and monsoons, and they shift from going towards thingy, and they shifted to go into Saudi Arabia and up the Red Sea, and then that rains in the lakes, and the lakes then overflow, causing erosion, which eventually breaks the stone dam of the walls of the wadi, keeping the water in, and then they go flood into the Red Sea, draining into the ocean. And that then causes, all the aboriginals around the coastal regions of Australia, a couple thousand years later, to feel those effects of the ocean finally raising, because that's how long it takes from water to get from, Saudi Arabia to Australia, is a period of 4,000 to 5,000 years. And then, of course, all this then comes together in about 5,000 to 7,000 BCE, in a genetic bottleneck for males.
Note that roughly about the same time, a population bottleneck occurred within our species of the people that survived the younger Dryas period.
They survived, and then a few thousand years later, that's when the bottleneck happened. It happened then. It has nothing to do with cultural hitchhiking and competition between patrilineal kin groups explain post-Neolithic Y chromosome bottleneck. It's almost like the thing doesn't say anything about the flood, and even at the bottom of it, it says that we could show that our title, the evidence shows that our title is correct, which says nothing about a flood.
Meaning the amount of humans decreased rapidly.
Yeah, and decreasing rapidly has nothing to do with the knock-on effect of, a few thousand years of killing all the megafauna. which includes predators and prey, which then change the fucking nature around them and mean different animals come to fruition, right? So then there's different prey and different animals, and maybe there was less food going around. Maybe there was more wars. Maybe the decreased lifespan from agricultural farming was actually taking off everywhere that wasn't just the Indus Valley or Egypt or Mesopotamia, right? And people all across the world started dying off because of the malnutrition, disease, and fucking medical conditions that came about from the transition from being hunter-gatherers into being settled farmers. You know, when lifespans from hunter-gatherers went from like 70, 80 years to 40 to 30 because of the low quality of the food, the low quality of where we lived, and like the prevalence of plagues, deaths, and all these things. Why look at any outside factors when all you want to talk about is the flood? Right? You wouldn't want to look at anything else in the world and anything else that happened at different periods from different stuff and the reasons that stuff actually happened, when you can just lie about it and say that things that are thousands of years apart are definitely connected in a knock-on domino type way, where this rain fell here, so then these people immediately died there, instead of it happening a couple thousand years apart, right? This is just bending... You know, they're just creating narratives because all they care about is a narrative, right? Because when you're creating a narrative, what that means is you get to shape that narrative. And when you get to shape the narrative, you get to put it across in any way you wish. It does muddy the waters before the person gets to it. Pretending like you have all this information, like you're talking about a bunch of stuff you're not expecting other people to know anything about, right? So you can talk like a preeminent authority, so you know you don't have to cry when you're wrong or anything like that, right? Because you know you gotta circumnavigate the person's intellect, you know, with lies and lies of omission and just straight up misunderstanding, and like, you know, quick and you'll miss it shots of various things that if you actually pause it and read it for a second. But don't worry, look at the keys. Look at the keys, my friend. This is why I don't like Christian arguments, because it's all it is. It's just a form of obfuscation that they don't have any actual proof or any actual evidence to post that actually comes close to any of the supernatural claims. So they've got to make up stuff like this and stitch things together.
I am the Weaver.
You know, because they think they know better. Because, you know, God told them, right? Their God, not other people's gods, just theirs specifically, right? Because if you just gloss over that and expect all your audience to be so fucking stupid they're not going to pick up on this shit. That's why they hate us atheists. It's not even because we don't dislike God. It's because we see stupid shit like this and we go, you know, none of that is real, right? This is why none of this could happen in the way you've said it, because you've left out literally all this stupid bullshit.
Before a repopulation event occurred. However, the bottleneck shows more of a sharp decrease in terms of the male population, not the female population.
And then it has nothing to do with societal norms. I don't know, being entrenched where you've got, like, you know, you've got your Lugals, you know, your big man, you know, from Mesopotamia, and you've got your different things that are starting to take over places, right? And then maybe you have to start fighting against other people because wars start to happen, and not just like, oh, there's a tribe over there, and, you know, we've randomly run into each other in our gathering, and maybe we'll fight, and maybe we're not. We'll go, I am from I want to kill the people of this place is mine, let's form empires and kingdoms and rule over things. You know, people started fighting more because they had better weapons in which to do it, and I don't know, maybe that has to do with a higher, like, concentration of male deaths instead of female deaths, because societal norms started saying that actually it's the men that should go out and start killing each other, and the women should stay at home and do all the home things, you know, like taking care of children and food and such. Maybe it was the start of, because like I'm just pulling that straight off the top of my dome, I don't know for 100%, and I ain't looking up every study. This is pretty self-explanatory what's going on. It said it itself, even in the bit that it fucking showed. So actually, if we look at all this evidence, we could actually say that probably that there's a greater chance of more male men dying of war and wounds from war. You know, like if you get stabbed and you don't die in the war, but then you get sepsis later on and die, gangrene.
With estimates claiming there was on average 1 man for every 17 women. Some have suggested this was due to a high rate of polygamy. whereas a more recent study says such a factor could not alone account for the high disparity. And another factor has to be looked at, namely a high level of warfare and violence, which historically has decreased the male population more than the female population. But this correlates with what we read in the early chapters of Genesis.
No, it doesn't, because the early chapters of Genesis say everyone but Noah dies, not a bottleneck of men being killed in war and the majority of women living. That is not what it says. It says that God was angry that people were fucking angels and killed everything that wasn't on the fucking ark. That's what it says. But hey, the Lord also says, trust not in your own understanding and trust in the Lord's. And this cunt knows better than the Lord, even though the Lord put it in his inerrant, divinely inspired book. But this cunt knows better because he's kind of read a few studies and those disagree with the Bible. So actually, if you kind of change around what it says and you leave out other bits, well then you can fit it to fit with the Bible. And as long as science and the Bible agree, then everyone should get along, right? It doesn't matter how wrong it is and how often you can show that. None of that matters. He's fucking untied that Gordian knot and he's figured out how to make everyone just fucking believe what this cunt says, right? Because, it's not in the Bible and, none of these studies say that it was a global flood that was inspired by God in any way. But hey, as long as I can infer it and put it across that way in my calm fucking voice, well then everyone's gonna believe me. Hooray! What a cunt! Cunt!
That at the time of the flood, the practice of polygamy began to increase, and violence was on the face of the earth.
And that was the third time we saw the Loch Ness Monster. Then one time, I believe it was July. August. There's a knock on the door. I open it, and there's this cute little Girl Scout.
Oh, she was so adorable with the little pigtails and all.
And she says to me, how would you like to buy some cookies? And I said, we'll take a graham crunch. How much would that be? And she looks at me and she says, I need about $3.50. Well, it was about that time that I noticed this Girl Scout was about 8 stories tall and was a crustacean from the Plesiozoic era.
The Loch Ness Monster.
I said, damn it, monster, get off my lawn. I ain't giving you no $3.50.
And then God killed everyone. You see, these studies, according to him, these studies say, hey, the violence increased and there was more polygamy, and Genesis says that, and then God killed everyone, even though none of the studies show that everyone died. None of them. It just shows a dramatic reduction in male populations, and that totally is what God meant by killing everyone, right? Because males were the only ones that fucking mattered. Children didn't matter, they weren't proper people, and women were property, right? So if women were property, hippity hoppity, women are property. Hey. So your women are property, your kids don't matter, so men are the only one that matter, right? So I guess if most of the male population dies out, because that thing goes really low, and it doesn't denote how many thousands of millions of people there actually were, right? What it denotes is this is how we think how many of them there were, and it's definitely not only one. Well, no, it was Noah and his 3 sons. So it should have been 4 males to 1 female. That's what the Bible says, right? So if you're going to talk about, they were doing violence and blah, 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 well, then we also have to talk about how you just went on about how there was 14 women to 1 male, and your fucking book says there was 4 fucking males to 1 woman. Maybe 2. I can't remember if he had daughters or not. Maybe it was 3 and 3. I can't fucking remember. Let's have a look, shall we? What's Noah's fucking family? Oh, and the boyfriends got their wives as well. So there was an equal number of men and women. There was 4 men and 4 women. There's an equal amount. But hey, if you ignore that part because you don't talk about what the Bible actually says, and you go, well, the scientific person said this, and you're supposed to trust scientific people, right? So if I twist the logic and meaning into what I want it to be, then you'll trust it more, right? Oh, goody! What a good, kind, and holy person he is, who lies out his ass to try and fucking misinform others so they'll believe what he wants them to believe based on false information, because he's done the fucking work, hasn't he?
Thus, what was happening at the time period when this regional flood occurred does correlate to what is described in the Bible.
I know it says in that study I was looking at before, it says that it's taken from all people across the world, but, I'm just talking about this one area, and do you not see this lake, this glorious lake that I did not say was here in the last video when I was talking about it. I made it out that it was much, much smaller, but actually what happens now is I have figured out that I was in fact wrong from another study, so I've had to make it bigger because I can retcon it, and no one will know the fucking difference because all my followers are Christian bigoted idiots. So, hey, Mr. Inspiring Philosophy, why don't you stop your fucking studying, and why don't you go fucking hang out with your attempted murderer sociopath knobhead and talk about child fucking some more? How about that? You know, all the Muslims do the child fucking, and our book doesn't say take the little girls for yourselves, and if you want to marry them, then you fucking rip out the nails and you take away the hair and you keep them alone for a month and then you have their way with them. And if you don't like them after that, you can't sell them, because that's the good thing. You can't sell them afterwards, you know. But you know, if you want to fuck them as much as possible, you know, it's okay, because they weren't spoiled goods until you killed their family, killed their children, their parents, their husbands, their sisters, their brothers, their friends, their dog, their cat, their fucking goats, the cow, whatever. And then you fucking rip out the nails and cut out the hair, and then you can have your way with them no matter the fucking age, because Moses says take the little girls that don't know the touch of a man for yourself. And considering people were fucking at a pretty early age, because you know the old phrase, if there's grass on the field, play. Well, they really went for that. So if they were really young, it didn't matter, right? You know, because when you were only living to maybe 30, 40, 50, well, you need to have children sooner, you see, so you get to start that fucking young. So you want to pretend that you Christian fucks weren't fucking kids left, right, and fucking center? Fucking suck a dick. You're just as bad as the Muslims, you're all as bad as each other, and you all took it from the fucking Jews. So fuck off. Get off your goddamn high horse, admit you don't know anything that you say that you do, you have no proof towards anything, and you would rather spend your time hanging out with attempted murderers than actually figuring out shit. Little bit of a tangent, but go fuck yourself. How about that?
And this bottleneck could also explain what we see right after the flood account, which is the Table of Nations. Some skeptics have scoffed at the idea that Genesis could claim that several nations within the region could trace back to just a few males.
You know, considering that some of them are like, hey, those ones are incestuous because they thought that everyone had been destroyed with, you know, fire, phosphorus, and brimstone. So then some daughters fucked them, and you see how they came from that? Like, we have proof of people existing well before you think that the Bible came about. So go fuck yourself. Like, the idea that all these people came from one person, like one group of people, is fucking funny as fuck. Consider it, was it Magog? These people talk about people, was it, he wants to talk about the Table of Nations, does he? Let's talk about the Table of Nations. He wants to talk about population sizes, right? We'll talk about the Table of Nations in a minute. I'm hoping he's actually going to tell me where I can find him. If not, I'll just look it up and then do it anyway. But when we look at this fucking picture, what it says is on the right hand side, on the right hand vertical vertices. What it says is effective population size in thousands, not 4. But hey, who gives a shit about that? Because you could go, well, it's a bottleneck and it must be only these small amount of people, right?
Of course!
Because don't look at it too closely. Don't look at it too close. It's like the people with they put the balls underneath the cups. They go, don't look too closely now. Don't look at it too closely now. And if they're really good, they're like Penn Jillette and they paint the nail a certain color. And they go, and then you watch this and not what the cups are doing, you see. Watch the color. Watch the color. Watch the color over here. Watch it. You see, it's like, it's just Penn Jillette, isn't it? That's all it is. It's a perfect analogy, isn't it? It's just a perfect analogy, right? So, Penn Jillette, he stands there, right? You see? You know, you don't need to see my face because that's not what matters. So when Penn Jillette talks, he has one hand in his pocket, right? Showing that he is not doing anything with this hand because it is Penn, right? It's Teller that does all the tricks, right? So you see him, he's got his hand in his pocket, means that he's not doing anything with this hand. And he talks with this hand and he goes da-da-da-da-da. And his ring finger has red on it. He says it's for his mother, it might be. But you see, and he talks like this, right? Because he's holding the thing out and he's like, look at Penn doing all the stuff. But you see, and I'm going to pontificate and I'm going to do this and I'm going to gesticulate and I'm going to move my hand around over here. I'm going to move my hand around over there. And as long as I can move it in a direction that is away from what Teller is doing, you'll pay more attention, you see, to the finger. Because it's over here, when he's over here, it's over here, when he's over here. You see, because he's keeping your eyes away specifically from what he wants you to look at, and that's all this fucker is doing. Do you see there's a bottleneck? Don't look at the study and the actual things on it. Don't look at the colors that say Southeast Asia, Siberia, Southeast Asia, Southeast and East Asia, Near East and the Caucasus Mountains, Europe, Central Asia, the Andes, or Africa. Don't look at any of those words. Don't look at the fact that it says thousands of years ago. Don't look at the fact that it says effective population in thousands. Pay attention to the rambling man. Pay attention to the rambling man as all the facts just wash over you because you're not supposed to pay attention to them properly. You're supposed to watch this as a shitty YouTube video, right? And just go, well, yep, I'll remember some of it. But you know what? At the time, I was mighty convinced. Anyway, so I'm just going to, fuck it. I'm just going to stop it there because I am going to do the Table of Nations, but that's going to be next video. And, you know, if Mr. Beverly has enough time to finish off what I haven't sent him yet, it makes it sound like it's all on him. It's all on me. I've been very bad about doing this music video, and it is almost done. And it is so almost done that in fact I can show you some of it that doesn't have Mr. Beverly in it yet, and you can see what the video is going to start to be like because you stayed all the way to the end of the video, and you're the bestest of fans, so you get the special treaties, and everybody loves a little bit of special treaties. So, see ya. Good night, good day, Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye everybody, enjoy. I don't know why you're up there. I gave you devotion, but you don't care. So why all the rain? Why must I die? Please give me a sign. Hey up, governor. I'm back off down to the chimney sweep. Hey up, knees up. Hey, oh no, I'm a cockney. Sorry, that's another thing.